Hey everybody, live narration time, CI7 round 7. We are very deep in the tournament, only 6 players remaining as of the start of this round, and when the round is over, which it will be after this match, we'll be down to just 4 players in the tournament. Pretty serious, these guys are damn close to the money. And we are off to a fast and furious start here. Sadlysius on the bottom, our play-in winner, and of course the other play-in winner, Bad Dummy, still in the tournament as well, which is a remarkable run. Ban Manaphy topside, leading with a Swampert, which I don't believe he's used a lot of this tournament. He's been avoiding Skarm Bliss and Swampert throughout the tournament, which is pretty funky. The fact that he has consciously made that decision and somehow made it this far, and sadly is going to be displeased when he finds a Houndoom immediately coming in on Will-O-Wisp of all things as well. At least it's a trade with Boom. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to come in, you hope you get him with Thunderbolt or something. Give yourself a chance to crit him or para or win the 50-50 Crunch Pursuit game. But I guess with Boom, no harm, no foul. I mean, Mana still got what he wanted, though. The whole point of Houndoom, of course, is to make sure that Gengar isn't there. So now it's not anymore, and we'll see how much that ends up being an issue for Sadly. Mana might very well have things like Magneton and Snorlax in the back, for example. It could be like a Flygon. I mean, there's all sorts of things that want Gengar to not be there. We did see a Toxic miss, but it did connect on the following turn. However, a T-Wave came down, so that's relevant as well. Zapdos is paralyzed. A Spike is down, as we see, and now Metagross is in. 21% non-choice banded mash. We have seen lefties. And a Starmie comes in as well. So that's going to be a Whiffed Protect, and, well, that's one reason to get Gengar out of the way. We know that Rapid Spin cannot be blocked here. So the best you can hope for if you're Sadly is to, go to the Jolteon or something that punishes the Starmie, but you're not going to be able to prevent Rapid Spin here. It's gonna happen. Of course, Sadly could just Spike again, but that doesn't really get you too far. Yeah, I mean, he goes for Drill Peck. Maybe it's a non-recover Starmie, so the chip matters. Unclear. There's a world where Sadly maybe Spikes again here, but it could just be a recover turn for Starmie, which wouldn't really get him anywhere. Of course, it's very nerve-wracking to try to switch in, say, Jolteon here. You might just get surfed. See? Good thing he didn't. And he does reestablish a Spike. Same situation as before, nothing preventing a Rapid Spin, but if it's a non-recover Starmie. For example, if this is a Pursuit Tower, this is actually pretty good, because Surf won't kill without a crit, and now Pursuit is actually a big issue for Starmie. Wow, but Sadly gets out of the way. We haven't seen anything from the tower, but that's gotta not be a Pursuit Tower. Clearly, if it were Crunch Pursuit, you clearly go for it in that situation. And there's an Ice Beam against a paralyzed Zapdos, so para kicking in favorably for Sadly rather than for Mana. Thunderbolt's huge there, and now it turns around. Now it's Sadly with a bad full para. Jolteon in, anticipating Thunderbolt, and Mana all over that prediction switches it up to Hidden Power. However, Jolteon, not only faster to begin with, but certainly against a paralyzed poke, is going to get the jump here. Sadly, double switches to get to get the Skarm in against Meta, and reestablish a layer of Spikes. Wow, Meteor Mash probably would have killed there, but it goes wide. And that's probably one of the better things he could have roared out as well. So that was a good turn for Sadly, catching some variance, but kind of surprised that he clicked Roar again and let the paralyzed Zapdos kill him. If he was going to let the Zapdos kill him one way or another, why not just click Spikes? I question that play. He clearly must have thought that Mana was going to switch. He must have been anticipating, probably the Starmie, but something switching in there. Maybe he should have gone to Jolt, because that would have covered both the T-Bolt and the Starmie. I'm not sure, but clearly clicking Roar there, conceding you can go first against a paralyzed poke, and getting nothing done is not the result that he was looking for. This is a pretty close game. Sadly's busted out Jolt Spike Stacks, which is an archetype I have not seen him play much of at all. And Mana has been, like I said, avoiding Skarm Bliss throughout the tournament. I don't know if he's doing that just to challenge himself, or if he just has a different view of ADV and just doesn't think those things are as good as the rest of us seem to think that it is. But his success speaks for itself. And sadly, with some kind of physical tower, as we could have assumed based on the previous interaction with the Starmie, does click Earthquake and take out the Starmie here and leave us in a 3-3 situation. Unrevealeds on the back for both players. For sadly, whatever it is, it must be a Rock Resist. I could see a Jilla meta in the back. I could see Swampert, I guess. I'm not a big Swampert plus Suicune guy, but some people do like to do that. And that Surf was crucial. Had he been Critter full powered there, it goes a different way. So Mana does have the Lax in the back that I thought might be there, but he doesn't have Magneton to support it. Curse here would be a huge turn, yeah, for Sadly to roar it out. Got to do that there. Cannot let the Lax set up. The problem is the meta's probably going to have Boom. It might not because of Protect. But the meta and the Rachi, if one or both have Boom, it's going to make it tough for a last poke. And the last poke is Jirachi here. So this team for Sadly is cheating a little bit against DD-Tar and physical threats. But fortunately for him, he's not against that right now. So he's got a shot. He's really hoping for a burn here. Earthquake's going to be real tough, actually. He needed a burn, so now he's going to need a crit or a burn to keep him alive. And he's not going to find either one. Mana's going to click Earthquake and hold on. It's very unclear how close this actually was. Let's say he did crit him there. I think given the presence of the Houndoom designed to remove Gengar, I think it is actually very likely that this is a Curse, Earthquake, Rest Snorlax, which, if that is the case, the Jirachi was going to have a hard time with it no matter what. So I think, even though this looks pretty close at the end, and it wasn't a blowout by any means, I also don't think it was ridiculously close, and I think that Mana probably had this one from that position the vast majority of the time, one way or another. So this puts Sadly, who was just one game away from guaranteed money just last round, it puts him all of a sudden with his back against the wall. He is one game from elimination. That's a scary place to be. We would all be impressed by his run. He won play-ins and he would have finished top 6 if he were to lose, which is very respectable, a very good run. But I know that Sadly himself would not be satisfied with that. He would be disappointed. He would feel like he blew an opportunity. He would feel like he underperformed. He's just very hard on himself. And it's really too bad. It's a lesson for everybody. We're all so much harder on ourselves than other people tend to be on us. Everyone but Sadly is going to look at it and go, dude, great run. But he's not going to see it that way. He's going to be all depressed. Here's game 2. And that is I was going to call it a Mana signature Pokemon. He's not the only dude in the world who uses Medicham or has ever used Medicham, but he's very fond of it. That is a very common Manamon. I am a big Medicham fan myself. I think it's a great lead, and Mana sees it the same way, and it's obviously going to match up well against a lead Tyranitar for Sadly. Wow, and not the start that he wanted. Sadly gets in thinking maybe Mana will get cute, maybe Mana's going to BP out, or maybe Mana's going to do something like predict a Salamence and click Rock Slide or whatever. But sometimes the most obvious thing is in fact the scariest thing, and Mana just attacks what's in front of him. Clicks Brick Break. And obviously a Medicham with its pure power, stab, seemingly choice band Brick Break is going to knock T-Tar into next fucking week. So early advantage for Mana, who is already up a game. We didn't get to talk about Mana as much. We talked about Sadly briefly, but Mana is one of the most consistent CALLOUS Invitational players ever. Ever since joining the tournament in CI4, he has never finished below 2-2, and he's made deep runs multiple times, including making money in CI4. And he's making a run for the money here as well. If he gets past Sadly, which he obviously hasn't done yet, he'll have just one more match to win. I'm not going to tell you who it's against. Spoilies. It did already happen in real time. I haven't narrated it yet, but I'll do that tonight, and you guys will have these videos on YouTube around the same time. But yeah, he would have one more opponent to defeat, and he would be a two-time winner of money in CALLOUS tournaments, which is a pretty small group of people who have managed to do that. Back to the game at hand, though. It doesn't look like it's like the end of the world for Sadly that he lost his T-Tar. It certainly isn't a good thing, but now that we know, paired with Fori, it's clearly, it was a Pursuit Tar of some kind, whether it's Pursuit with Ice Beam or Flamethrower or whatever, some kind of Pursuit Tar, and it doesn't look like it would have been fantastic against Mana. Blissey, like I said, is a poke that I don't think he's brought at all up until now in the tournament. I think he's had 0 Skarn Bliss up until now, and I think he knows that Sadly is aware of that information and that Sadly's going to scout him, which may be why he's opted to change it up and bring it now, or not, or maybe he just felt like it this one time. I don't know, but Mana is a very difficult player to prep scout for. He's just so all over the place. He's so creative and unpredictable. He can really bring just about anything. He's not afraid to bring out, like last CI, we saw him bring out Roselia Arcanine on the same squad. This year, we've seen Medicham lead multiple times. We saw Gorbis from him in the previous round. It's very difficult to try to predict what Mana's going to bring. And that's a great quality to have for tournament players, instead of just being one of those guys who brings the same one or two things over and over again. The fact that you can just change it up and bring whatever the fuck and your opponent can't really counter team you and it's kind of a crapshoot to try to counter you, that's a very good thing. And more players would elevate their game if they could develop that same skill. But as it stands, we finally have a brief pause in what has largely been a bit of a clicker fest between these two players. I'm surprised, honestly, that a little bit more timer isn't being used from both players, but it's been pretty quick. And a Focus Punch came down there, which, yeah, I mean, it's as good as you're getting against Suicune, I guess. Earthquake, effectively the same in this case, pending a crit, of course, but either one would have gotten him with a crit. Could have been devastating on the Bliss had she stayed into, like, soft-boiled or toxic or something to that effect. Earthquake for the kill. Alrighty, Sadly bringing it back a little bit, taking out a valuable target in Suicune. If this is a CB Medicham, Protect could be a thing here, but Focus Punch Pert usually doesn't carry Protect, really hard to fit both, so I'm not surprised that Mana didn't really hesitate there and just auto-assumed, correctly I would say, that the Swampert does not have Protect. So Fori goes down, but it does have the one layer of spikes down. Not clear yet if Mana can remove it. Suicune is often paired with Claydol. Wouldn't be surprised if that's in the back, but not entirely clear what Mana's team is. You don't typically see Medicham on a team with Blissey. Those two are pretty opposite. Wouldn't surprise me. We haven't seen yet, but if it were a T-Wave Bliss, or we have seen, my bad. But that actually makes a lot of sense to me. It deals with the special threats, the Zapdoses, the Gengars of the world that Medicham wants no part of. And obviously Medicham appreciates the para support. So as weird and opposite as those two kind of sort of are, it makes sense to me. I can get there. I'm open to that kind of thing. I've actually always liked, not Medicham, but like I've always liked pairing like Heracross and Blissey, for example, I think is an underrated combo. It's the same concept. So I'm down with the Medicham Bliss here. Like I said, 4 to 5 game, unrevealeds on both sides, 3 of them for Mana, and just 1 for Sadly, which I assume is some kind of cleaner, whether it's Salamence or Arrow, or maybe it's Jirachi again, but some kind of cleaner. We know that Medicham here is locked on Brick Break. Well, they're both pausing to take timer now. Blissey's at 41%, which is kind of awkward, actually, but she's going to come in. And that Thunderbolt leaves her at just 9%. There's no way she's surviving another. Is Mana just giving it up? There you go. Blissey down. So, sadly, like I said, who had been fairly far behind, because that turn 1 was really bad. It was a strict loss for him, a strictly disadvantageous turn for him. He's managed to come back a little bit. This game, I mean, I think Mana's slightly ahead because Sadly stuff is kind of beat up. We've got the Zapdos here at 58. We've got the Swampert at half. Got the Celebi with a little bit of chip on it. But I think the lead for mana, if there is one at all, is relatively minor, is relatively tame. I think Sadly's in this game and really giving it a go. And I'm glad to see the pause. Like I said, I felt like they were both kind of clicking and kind of going a little fast in the early going here, but perhaps this time, especially when Sadly knows that he's one game away from being out of the tournament potentially, I don't blame them for taking the damn timer. I sure would. Wonder what Sadly's thinking about here. Is he afraid to go to Celebi in case it's like a bad hidden power or doesn't want to come into Toxic or something? Celebi feels like a pretty safe switch and feels like the obvious switch, but I could definitely see, he doesn't want the Magneton to sub on a switch and just start terrorizing him or something like that. I can understand where he might be coming from depending on the set of the Celebi, especially if it doesn't actually have a move that can break through a Magneton sub. That could definitely be a consideration, that you don't want to let it just sub up for free while you come in and can't really do much back. I get that. Wow, a lot of timer. And it isn't just Sadly either. Mana's thinking too. I love it. I want to see timer when we're this deep in the damn tournament. I mean, I like seeing it in general because it shows that you care about the tournament and you can be bothered to think it over and go through the options or whatever. But early on, if you want to be a little more clickery, I guess I can live with it. But certainly I respect the use of the timer when we're this deep and when there's this much money on the line. Which I'm going to take this brief moment while we're waiting for a switch to remind you guys that you can donate. This is the highest paying CALLOUS Invitational we've ever had. We're over $2,700. You want to add to that? There's still time to do so. So Salamence in the back for mana. That hidden power comes very close, but crucially it does not kill. So who will receive the Baton Pass boost? The final poke for Sadly in the back is Jirachi again. Eats an Earthquake relatively comfortably. I mean, about as comfortably as he's going to. But that's probably not what he wanted the poke in the back to be. Meta is an immediate threat with Earthquake. And he's going to have to figure out how he wants to respond. The fact that he has Ice Punch probably means that he doesn't have Fire Punch. He can Thunderbolt him here, but there's no way that it comes close to killing. So he'd be fishing for Para, which is pretty crappy odds. He could go to Swampert or Celebi here. For Celebi, it would just be a sacrifice. It's at 4%. And then Swampert's at 54. This looks tough. This looks tough. Maybe you can sack Celebi here, go to Swampert, try to pull back to Jirachi on a boom, and then try to beat both the Magneton and the Medicham one-on-one with Swampert. That would require pretty good damage rolls against the Medi, and then it would require the Magneton not having a hidden power that can finish you off. The lines are pretty thin at this point, I think. I don't think there's a lot of choices, but so far, Sadly doing what I'm suggesting. He fodders off. Oh, he goes Earthquake there. That makes it vaguely interesting. I thought he was going to switch to Jirachi, but he snipes out the Magneton. Ooh, but Brick Break kills. I don't know if that was a damage roll or not, but now it's going to be tough for Sadly. He's going to have to get there with a crit, a para, a freeze. He's going to need Jirachi nonsense. Serene Grace one time, 20% freeze. Cannot get it. Mana lands the Earthquake and gets him. Ice Punch was the correct play. Thunderbolt there, even with a crit, could never kill. So if he went with Thunder Punch, or Thunderbolt rather, he would be relying on a para and a full para, which is way worse odds than just going for the freeze. So he goes ahead and makes the right play. 20% chance, 1 out of 5 that you get there with the freeze. Unfortunately for Sadly, Serene Grace BS did not activate when he needed it to. The Lethal Earthquake gets off, and this is yet another close one. But the winner is going to be Ban Manaphy, once again in the top 4 of CALLOUS Invitational. Such a remarkably consistent player. But before we go, guys, I want to just reiterate what I said before. I know Sadly's personality, and I know that he's going to be upset and disappointed with this run. You guys should be as nice and as supportive of him as possible, because we all know that he really deserves it. That's a top 6 run from him from play-ins. Really, really good. Hats off and lots of respect, even if it didn't finish the way that he wanted it to. Clearly a good CALLOUS Invitational run, and better than the vast majority of the field. So seriously, guys, hats off and respect to Sadly. He 100% deserves it, and he's a super nice guy. But nevertheless, like I said, 4 players now in the tournament. The yet-to-be-determined winner of Bad Dummy and C, and then Ban Manaphy here against the winner of the already played other match that I'm not going to spoil, but you guys should go back and check that out on YouTube, and you'll know who the matchup is. Those are the only 4 players remaining. We are very deep in CALLOUS Invitational. Like I said, donation's going to be open to the very end. Maybe we can hit 3,000, but no matter what happens, it is already the highest paying CALLOUS Invitational ever, so that's really cool. I appreciate you guys watching. Please do hit the like button if you enjoyed it as well, and I'll see you in the next video.